All right. I think we're live here. Let's double check to make sure that we are fully live. Yeah. Welcome to the Sound Money Podcast. This is the first episode. I've mentioned previously that I'm going to be doing these episodes frequently, especially for the month of July, kicking things off. So today, after last night's debate, I got quite a few DMs from people asking questions about, what it means, the fact that Andrew Yang was trending as number one in the United States during this debate, and he virtually said nothing throughout the entire debate. And I have a couple reasons behind why that was, but I pulled up his quick profile here, and if you guys aren't familiar with Andrew Yang, what he stands for, it's basically this freedom dividend concept that is UBI, and from an economics perspective, it's been suggested a couple dozen times throughout history. There's a state that does it, which is Alaska, based on oil money. They're able to trickle that money throughout the citizens of that state. And I was really fascinated by Andrew Yang's platform that he's using, and I really think that he is a prime example of how influence online is the future of how these debates are going to play out. Because basically last night he said nothing and was trending higher than everyone else on the stage. A couple people weren't even on social media, their teams weren't posting, but Yang was front and center on Twitter, trending number one across the entire United States. So it was a cool example and a glimpse into what the future really is when it comes to these things. Grab my phone real quick just so I can watch the chat going. So the really, really fascinating part about last night's debate, not only the fact that he was trending number one in the US from just merely not talking, and it was said that was a strategy. I don't think that was a strategy whatsoever. I think that he was new to the stage, new to politics as a whole. So when you're new entirely to a platform like that, you're gonna freeze up a bit, and it makes perfect sense that he was a bit nervous in front of all those people. So a good example of why this was the way that it was and why he was trending. The previous debate got 9 million views. So to put that in context, Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster and media company, arguably, in the United States, his interview with Yang, on top of his clips that he made of Andrew Yang, was probably more than half of those 9 million views. So that means that one of his interviews, and he's done dozens of these interviews across social media to build up his audience. As you can see on Twitter, he's almost got 500,000 followers. So this is just a paradigm shift where you have one interview that was entirely him, on there talking to Rogan, and it got 50% of the views that the entire Democratic debate the first night got on social. So, as a total, the first night. And that should just lay the groundwork for what we're talking about here in the future of debates and politics as a whole. And Andrew Yang has very much wrangled that in. He's figuring it out as he goes. He's got an amazing team on his side, and I've been monitoring what he's doing on YouTube, monitoring what he's doing on Twitter, on Facebook, and he's got a lot of really interesting tactics. And the idea that you can get half the view count just from one interview on social media than the entire network, an entire television network, is pretty telling. So I wanted to briefly go over that, just the fact that he could have a strategy that was not even talking and be fine and trend number one and surpass Biden, Bernie, all the other people. So my thought process around this was that you can literally have a in real life or IRL presence, and then you have your digital presence, which he has an amazing one. He has like a cult following on social media, people memeing him, and he's doing a great job with that. So I was really impressed at how quickly he got to trending. I mean, it was within a couple minutes of the debate starting, and that should tell you that there is more emphasis online than there is with this generation than with on the stage that was by the network that was being moderated, and a lot of people were ripping up the moderators, but that's a pretty hard job moderating bullish people like that, and super powerful people. It just really is a difficult job. So I did want to just jump on here and talk to everybody about my opinions and what my thoughts were on the different politicians that were up there. So in terms of, your Joe Biden, it's basically everything that Obama was doing, and I don't normally dig deep into politics at all, but now that Yang is really leveraging what our generation is paying attention to, I definitely wanted to get my thoughts out there and definitely let everybody know what I think the future is going to be when it comes to politics. So with Biden, he was, getting across his point. He's leading in the polls, so a lot of older people are voting for him. I thought he did a great job. In terms of Kamala, having just moved from California, she is super aggressive, and they were clawing at each other for a while there. But I just can't help but just thinking that none of these people were, had the most aggressive audience on social media proves that they don't know what's really going on social media. And their teams may be trying, all these different things, but they're not properly memeing and not properly analyzing the situation online. And if you go on the trending tab right now and you look at what is trending, we go to moments, and you will see here that we have, this is trending from Andrew Yang. Let's see, where is his main one? Let's go to, just type in Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang. So yeah, a lot of people were saying that his people are memeing him hard. So Yang Gang, let's see that one. Let's see what comes up. Let's go latest. So you can see that every few seconds, Let Yang Speak is now trending, and it's still in the top 10 topics in the United States, which is pretty mental. But I can't help but realize that he's winning online. Like there's no two ways about it. I don't think that there's any argument there. He is doing collaborations with influencers on YouTube that I've seen. I've watched the majority of them. He's doing both right and left conversations, like interviews, unscripted interviews, live streams, so there's no editing. He was on with Ben Shapiro, he was on with Rubin, he was on with Joe Rogan. He really just is trying to get the conversation started, and he's pioneering that entire space. And you can tell by his presence on social media during that debate, where he doesn't even say anything, and all of a sudden he's just absolutely blowing up with the trending piece. And my idea for the future is that these types of debates will take place in like some sort of virtual stage, and their audiences will be in real time showing, who has the most support instead of they're clapping in an audience. They might still have an audience, sure, but the idea that they're merging the virtual world with the IRL world where they're on stage debating, arguing in front of each other. With at least a virtual world, you have some control over times that people are speaking. And it takes a little bit of that, like they were speaking over each other. It was getting kind of crazy. And as you can tell from the trending topics right now, his mic was being turned off. Apparently, I think that's a little bit of an excuse, but everybody was interrupting each other. It was kind of a cluster. And I think that in the future, they're going to do virtually having people on. All of their audience will be their base in politics, and they're going to be doing polling and things like that all online. There's not going to be any sort of real presence, and everybody's going to be doing this, whether the future is holographic or something like that. I'm not going to go too sci-fi on it, but I do think that there is going to be a virtual environment where they're all there, standing there. There's way better moderation because that's as clean cut as you can get. You have this much time, we cut you off, we move to the next person. Way easier to control who's saying what and when. And also you're able to see what's going on because the moderators should, be able to see in real time, just like a streamer. They should be able to know that there is someone in the chat saying something and then thousands of people saying something because of that. They should be having that data point. They shouldn't just be blind to the audience online. It just doesn't make sense for showing someone's entire influence online, because as far as Biden and Bernie are concerned, Yang's audience is way more frothing at the mouth and just wild to try and get him in front of more people. They're sharing all of this stuff within seconds of him posting it. And I think that there needs to be some account for that. And very similar to things that I talk about on the Sound Money podcast is that we are in an age where people need to take in account all of the data in front of them instead of these old archaic systems. Like I talked to Trust Science in an upcoming episode on the podcast that you guys will listen to in a couple of weeks here, where they're reinventing the credit score using the social graph and all these different things. So I think that it's going to be the same with politics, whether they're implementing your hologram things, your moderation that's actually controlled by just mics, cutting people off with video feeds and stuff like that in this virtual environment, and a much cleaner and smoother debate. Last night it just seemed kind of wild. Yeah, you can see that people were saying that his mic was muted. Can't expect fair play in American philosophy. It's a joke how rigged everything is. Okay, well, people definitely like to just say that things are rigged right out of the gate, and I'm not 100% convinced that they were doing their best job. I do think they were doing their best job. I'm not convinced that anything was rigged. I think that that's kind of whack to bring that up. Doesn't make much sense, but there are a lot of people saying that his mic was muted. Let's see what this is.
For the fraud that he is. For the fraud that he is.
Oh, I guess, yeah, he did start talking and then it's muted right there.
For the fraud.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe his mic was muted, but the reality is that he was winning online, which was what the point of this stream is that his audience was crushing it online. Every second, people were hashtagging and going wild with that Yang is on stage, he's not saying anything, he wasn't wearing a necktie. It was just an all-around win for him. I mean, there was no loss there. He was definitely not strategically doing that. I will say that. That just that's the power of social media, and people underestimate that he has this massive audience online. And if the other candidates just paid attention to that, it's fine. Even if Yang doesn't win, if people just pay attention to what they're doing from a marketing perspective and memeing and making all of these clean cut, these little snippets of all of his sayings and things like that right afterwards, like within 3 minutes of the campaign or the debate ending, it was out there, all of his snippets, all of his biggest points. So I really just think that people need to pay attention to what's going on, and I just don't think that they are, which is obnoxious, but that's just sort of the reality of it. And that's all I wanted to talk about today, was the future being like holographic in a controlled environment where there's not this like barking at each other and overlapping each other. There's no muting mics. It's literally like an even display all across the board. And it's in this virtual environment, which is where we're leaning. And when you have someone like Yang that has this enormous influence on social media, he can actually flourish and people can see it in real time instead of on this stage that's like determined by 3 or 4 people that are the moderators. So that's my rant on the future of Democratic debates and also Republican debates and all that good stuff. But I do think that they're missing a gigantic piece of the puzzle, being online influence and online audience. It just doesn't make any sense to not do that. So that's it for this. I'm going to be leaving the link to the Sound Money podcast below, and I'm going to have about 10 episodes rolling out in the next 2 weeks with amazing interviews. And I'm not just saying that. These guys are mind melters, guys and girls. So I hope that you guys tune in. And I'm going to be trying to do more of these streams pretty frequently. And that is it for this first one. And I got my mic set up, got my little coffee set up, and that is it for this. I'll see you guys on the podcast channel on YouTube, as well as this channel where I'm going to be streaming as well.